Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry for that last episode there. Came a little hot on the mic, so hopefully it'll be a little bit better this time around. I'm gonna back up off the mic, set my cup down. Oh, little rap there for all my 80s babies. Can we just start today by kind of acknowledging the beauty of this book? Shout out to John Collins Black on this masterpiece. As soon as you pick it up, you just realize how substantial this book is. All the high gloss pages, all black pages, just super sexy. Really appreciate the time and energy you put into this book. Just makes the hunt that much more enjoyable. Um, I am not a big reader. I get all my material from Audible. Any books or anything I want to read, I go straight to Audible. But I do know the value of a high-end hardcover book like this. So definitely spared no expense, left out no details. Just a gorgeous book. So appreciate it, John. Makes it that much more fun. Moving on from there, so just to give you a little background, when I first got this book, uh, I basically went to the starting chapter of the book, the intro. I hit on that just to kind of get a good idea of how the book works, get an understanding of John's energy as he put the book together. From there, I jumped directly to the postscript. Basically learned exactly how not to kill myself while I'm looking for this box. So definitely y'all should touch on that. Always good information to have. And then lastly, I went directly to the Appalachian Trail chapter. I knew from the beginning this would be my box that I would be chasing. Didn't want any real outside noise to mess with that at all. So I went directly to the Appalachian Trail box, and from there, that is where I spent all my time and energy. As you can see here, the seam all kind of worn out. This is really the only place I look. So highly recommend if you're new to the channel or just getting started, just got your first book, don't underestimate your own creativity. Okay, so take some time with the book, pick out a box you want to chase, and really just kind of immerse yourself in it before you go to any outside sources, Discords, YouTube channels, things like that. Just really get your own thought process in place and a foundation to get started. Just a little pro tip for you. Of course, you can do that after you watch this episode, or this series, I should say. And once I get you to the tree, that'll give you a good starting point, and then you can head out on your own from there if you want. So as I mentioned earlier, not a big reader. So when I first got the book, I did go to Audible, see if that was an option for me to have somebody read me the book. Was not an option, but that is where I found There's Treasure Inside, the unofficial podcast. So shout out to Blake, Cody, Bryn. They do a great job on that podcast. Super thankful. It actually turned out to be exactly what I wanted. So I wanted to focus solely on this chapter, but I did want kind of an overview of the book. And that's how they begin their whole series. They go through each chapter in the book and give you a kind of a surface level overview, also point out anything they find out interesting or any details that might be kind of a theme or solve. Um, Highly recommend that podcast if you're just getting started as well. I still follow it today to get my news, any news updates or anything, because I don't follow any outside sources beyond that. So if any time throughout the series you hear me say chatter, or I heard this, or I heard that, it would have came from the Treasure Inside unofficial podcast, because outside of that, it's just been me and Taco. So super excited. I've been hyper focused on this particular box. I think it will help everybody, regardless of the boxes you're chasing, and can't wait to get started on this journey with y'all. Welcome back to Map View. Sorry to go vertical on you here, but it just seems to be the best way to view the map and get the most details out of it at the same time. So I think for these videos, they're not going to be very long. I don't have the greatest of attention spans, so let's go kind of short and sweet, and we'll just chunk away at the map here until we get to the tree. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce you to the Appalachian Trail. So as promised in the earlier episode where we went through the icons, we have the begin here and the Springer Spaniel representing Springer Mountain, Georgia. So that is where we will begin the hunt today. Springer Mountain coming in at 3,782 feet of elevation is basically what is known as the southern terminus, which is the official starting point of the south end of the Appalachian Trail. Okay, so starting at the peak of Springer Mountain, Georgia, where the trail begins, you can see here on Google Earth, not a whole lot going on in the area. Definitely fairly rural northern part of Georgia. You do have the Amicalola State Park, which some people will start the trail hike from there, which is about almost 9 miles from the Amicola start point to the official start point of the actually Appalachian Trail. So to start, things I'm looking for in this area are going to be anything related or around the beginning point here, anything that just help kind of reassure that we're starting in the right place. So definitely looking for trees of any kind, as far as odd-looking trees or standalone trees. At the bottom of this tree, there is kind of a water reflection here. You can see though in Google Earth, in the way of water, not a lot going on other than the Amicalola Falls. So no real lakes or ponds in this particular area. Definitely looking at plaques, rocks, landmarks, anything we can do or anything we can find to link to things in this map. So some official findings that I went through was the plaque, of course, it starts the Appalachian Trail. That has a gentleman by the name of Earl Schaefer on it. Apparently was the first guy to ever do a through hike for the whole Appalachian Trail, which is quite a feat. Also, some other things I looked at were in the Amicola State Park, just looking for any kind of landmarks or anything I might tie into the butterfly or the background of the butterflies here. I was really hoping that when I found the cabins and lodgings and things that I'd be able to match something up there. It turns out to be nothing really there going on. Next, I was really interested in the rock here, especially the layout of the rock. I thought this might be potentially the state of Georgia, so I flipped it around 180 degrees, got a little closer, and then realized if I flip it like a pancake, it actually becomes a pretty close match to the state of Georgia. So definitely found that interesting. But then from there, I really found even more interesting was as I was flipping it, checking it out at 180 degrees, now look what you see. Can y'all see it? So you basically have the start of what looks like a waterfall coming off the peak here, and then it spreads out and kind of trickles down all the different layers of rocks. So when I show you this picture of Amicalola Falls, you can see definitely a pretty good resemblance to the waterfall there. So combining the state of Georgia shape with the Amicalola Falls, a waterfall, I think that's a pretty good solve. Really like that one. Something else interesting that caught my eye, kind of not even on the radar, but down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we didn't really go over it on the icons, but there's a kind of a whitish silhouette here of a tower. Really reminded me of the Atlanta Olympic tower that they built when the Olympics were in Atlanta back in '96. So I thought that was pretty interesting, maybe potentially kind of tying into the starting point there of Georgia. Also in the Atlanta area, there's a botanical gardens that I found pretty interesting, and that was more tied into the smoke icon here. So you'll see in this picture of the botanical gardens, they brought in like glass sculptures throughout the garden to kind of tie in nature and with a glass artist. And I thought that kind of resembled that smoke a little. Some other interesting finds on the punch list here was LEJ, Georgia, which is a massive apple producer of Georgia. They call Georgia the peach state, and apparently LEJ is where all the apples come from. So that definitely would tie in potentially here to the fruit basket. I found that fairly interesting, and it's just off the Springer Mountain Point here, just off the Appalachian Trail. Then I got to thinking about the quote that we started with in the last episode and how maybe John Collins Black should have made it less obvious. So then I really got to thinking, wow, what if this whole map was just a distraction and the treasure is literally right off the beginning of the trail? So I did a pretty deep dive into using the 1727, especially as a reference point, just measuring out anything here on Google Earth and checking the whole diameter of the around the mountain there. But ultimately, really just wasn't anything to tie into it or for it to make sense. A lot of steep drop offs, and as we know, this treasure is going to be hidden in a pretty safe location. So that kind of fizzled out. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through every single idea and thought process and investigation that I took to start this map. I just wanted to hit on some bigger ones that I touched on, and I think we have enough here to say, yeah, this is a good starting point. So let's head out on the path. Also important to note, as treasure hunters, I think it's important to know when to leave well enough alone because you're never going to be 100% on any of this. So, finding that happy medium of when to stay and when to go is going to be a crucial part of just kind of keeping that momentum, keeping that energy alive. Okay, that about wraps it up for this episode. As I mentioned before, I'm going to keep these things short and sweet. So, a little homework for you. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and take some time to trace out this map, mark out any icons. It could come in very handy on the next episode. We're going to get a little more into the Google Earth side of it. So, yeah, join me next time. We're about to blow the lid off of this thing.